Well, now to a dire warning regarding Yemen. The country is now in its third year of a brutal civil war. Thousands of people have been killed, including many civilians. And now people there face an invisible enemy, an outbreak of cholera. The charity Save the Children warns that with food and medical care, scars more than 1 million very young children are acutely malnourished and at risk for the deadly disease. Well, for more, we're joined by Mark Kaye of Save the Children. He's joining us from London. Good to have you with us, Mark. The cholera outbreak we know started in about April last year. Just describe for us what it's done to the people there, to the children of Yemen.
Well, I mean, cholera preys on the vulnerable. Particularly children are susceptible and it's spread by contaminated water sources, and what we're seeing now in Yemen is an epidemic of absolutely huge proportions with hundreds of thousands affected, and children are particularly bearing the brunt. Many are already very susceptible to the disease due to malnutrition, and what we're worried about is that potentially hundreds of thousands could be killed if this epidemic isn't brought under control fast.
And just explain for us how it's spreading and the symptoms.
Well, as I said, it's spread by contaminated water. It's highly infectious. Basically, rubbish that has been collecting in the streets for months, as public servants haven't been paid for months, has been mixed into water sources due to heavy flooding. Water treatment centres have been damaged and destroyed in the conflict, both by airstrikes and by shelling on the ground. And what that means is that civilians, those who are trying to find clean water, aren't able to access it. And children who, as I said, are suffering from malnutrition. There are millions who aren't getting enough food to eat, who are particularly vulnerable to this disease and are now coming into our centres. Unfortunately, many that aren't able to get to the centres we're working in are perishing.
There are so many countries involved in this civil war there. Just explain for us how challenging it is trying to get in aid to help those who are most vulnerable.
I mean, Yemen is probably one of the hardest operational environments to try and deliver aid in the world right now. We struggle to get aid into the country, largely thanks to a de facto blockade by the Saudi-led coalition. That means no commercial shipments are getting in, no food, no aid, no medicine, and this is having huge issues. We've got, Save the Children, currently 160 tonnes of cholera treatment medicines that we are trying to get into the country. They should hopefully be arriving very soon, and it's absolutely key that that aid is able to get in, that is able to be moved around the country to the areas that need it most.
We're just seeing those pictures, as you mentioned, of the build-up on rubbish on the streets because the sanitation workers are striking because they're not being paid. How bad could things get there?
Yemen right at the moment is probably the largest humanitarian crisis in the world in terms of needs. You have 21 million people currently in need of humanitarian assistance, and now it's also got the unenviable title of the country with the largest cholera outbreak potentially in recorded history. You have no food, no access to healthcare, schools that are closed that have been attacked, hospitals that have been attacked. It really is the perfect storm, and what we're seeing repeatedly is that children, civilians are continuing to bear the brunt of this crisis. Unless there is a political settlement soon, what we will expect to see is, hundreds of thousands potentially who may die, and that will be on all our conscience.
It certainly will be. And of course, the infrastructure there, a major problem. So much has been destroyed. Kids not only not being able to get enough food, but many missing out on an education.
Yeah, schools, hospitals have all been attacked. Both sides to this conflict continue to show scant regard for international law, for the protection of civilians, and unfortunately there have been over 300 verified attacks by the UN on schools, on hospitals over the last 2 years, including by the Saudi-led coalition. And what we've been saying is there needs to be an end to the hostilities, there needs to be an end to the violence, because that's the only way that aid agencies like Save the Children will actually be able to go in and reach all those who need the help most. Essentially, we are a sticking plaster, and actually it's up to politicians to ensure that this conflict ends.
Mark Kaye from Save the Children. Good to have you with us and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got some breaking news just into CNN. A White House official says President Donald Trump has just signed the Russian sanctions bill. Congress overwhelmingly approved that bill last week. The sanctions are in a response to alleged Russian election meddling and Russia's annexing of Crimea from Ukraine. The bill also put new sanctions on North Korea and Iran. Well, still to come, after decades of intimidation, extortion and violence, many ordinary Sicilians are taking their lives back from the mafia. We'll tell you how next.